Sorry, Secretary.
While we have been presented with an initial concept by a specific individual, our plan would be to develop and request for proposals and set guardrails, parameters, and outcomes which we believe necessary to protect this important aviation asset, ensuring public use into the future. Any sale would require the Caledonia State Airport property to remain open to the public for aviation uses within the deed, and the leases of all current leaseholders would be honored in any agreement to sell the airport. The private sector moves at a pace which does not always align with the public sector. This is likely a limited time opportunity, and the sooner we advance to understanding this and other possible opportunities and critically evaluate private sector interests and offers, the better we will be positioned to take advantage of a unique time and history of this airport to potentially land a package of investments which would be beneficial to the entire Caledonia County region and its airport users. I would also add just any money from the sale of an airport, of this airport, would plow back into state dollars to be used for aviation purposes. And with that, that ends my formal comments, and happy to take any questions,
Well,
including my
I'm
colleagues.
glad we're discussing this. This is something that, you know, I personally have felt a long time we should do what we could to improve our airport situation, or whether it's private or whatever it is. We have those assets and we have to have some involvement. So this is a good start. It's a good discussion. Committee, questions?
Well, if your plan is to move forward quickly, you're talking about, we don't tend to move as quickly. So you're seeking authorization to move forward with, to solicit RFPs.
Correct.
And this committee, I think the bill might be, we bring it down to approach already.
Should be signed.
But if, any amendment could be done here as well, as part of the presentation for the committee. I know that you had some draft language that we could consider. The one thing that I don't see in it, and maybe it's inherent in it, but one of the big concerns is the assurances on public use. And I don't think this.
Do we have a copy of what you had, Dean?
No, it's something, and Thea it was something, I think Michelle has got it.
Just so we know what we're asking for.
But I do think we ought to make it clear that we talk about in this state interest leases, licenses, and other agreements. But I think having in that authorization that we're seeking, that we would want to have specifically stated that the condition of the sale would be that the resource or the asset would be available to the general public's use. There are a few hangars being rented now. There are some private planes. I don't know if the state-owned hangar is empty or occupied.
We have one state-owned hangar, correct.
Is it state-owned? Is it leased or is it empty?
No, it's full. It has, I think there's 4 planes in there.
Okay, all right.
What's a commercial? Do we have any commercial there now, like UPS? Or I know we talked about years ago, we talked about UPS was wanting to, but there was no lighting or something, and I know we were having difficulties at the time.
Several years ago, they were looking around at all different,
Right.
evaluating
Right.
which ones.
Right.
That one did come up because that one and Newport came up as sort of the
Right.
Northeast Kingdom. It never moved forward.
Okay, it didn't move forward, so there's no commercial at all. Okay. Yes.
Dan, if I may, that also, and I don't know what bearing it has on it, just curiosity on my part, I guess. Did that also have where you were going around and doing some preliminary Act 250 stuff as far as to clear sites for businesses that wanted to come in? Had we been to that point yet on that airport, like we had done with Newport and maybe Middlebury and some of the other areas where you were going in and getting them pre-ready?
Yes. Can't remember the number, but I think there's 4 pre-permitted hangar spaces. I That one I think is already, I think we're done there. I think we have 4 pre-permitted hangar. Don't quote me on the number.
No, I
I
just-
believe there's 4 there that are pre-permitted.
Yes.
One question I have is, in this proposed language, I see to solicit proposals for purchase of the Caledonia State Airport. Not necessarily opposed to that, but might it be worth expanding that to be purchase or 99-year lease, long-term lease, some other alternative configuration where you had a private investment
Did
would.
Senator Ingalls ask you to ask that question?
I've asked that question a couple times already.
Oh, really?
You know, we've seen
They
this.
were talking this morning together.
I mean, I think to answer your question, we would be controlling the RFP, including, if I might divert a moment, to your point, Senator Hitchell, about being very specific about ensuring public use, but having it in the language is fine. I think that it depends perhaps on who interested parties might be and what they feel for security and predictability. And granted, 99 years, I get it. But with respect to balancing financial investment. So what we're here to seek is permission to sell. But obviously what, if anything, the legislature decides is in your,
Should you give the option of either one so that you're not locked
if you
into
gave us
it?
the option of either one, but either one, not, yeah, I think that's frankly an improved
It's a
position.
discussion to have.
Correct, right.
Rather than just a
Sure.
single.
I mean, either one gives us more landscape.
Well, my main concern would be the local community and what they think of a private owner coming in there. I'm looking at the map, I'm just thinking of these people that live nearby there, and what their expectations are and how people that represent the district in the areas think about it. So that I'm interested in. We've already done that kind of outreach and what the select boards and others have said. And I didn't know if it's just this airport, or were you approached like with the Swan Airport? Would you sell that if there was interest? Like, what is it about this airport? I know you've read the problems that it has, but it seems like we have those problems or similar problems at a lot of airports.
Well, I mean, we have work to do at many of our airports, but in particular, the Highgate Airport is under construction as we speak. I was up there Monday afternoon. This airport is at a crossroads because we haven't put any significant investment into it. So we either go down a path where it takes us a decade or more, and I'm not being dramatic, when you compare all the other airports in the queue, to begin to start upgrading this airport, but not do everything comprehensively at one time. Versus your permission to look to see what's out there in the way of private investment, assuring public use, and making that decision. As far as the aviation community, I mean, I can't speak for them. I'm sure there are many or some watching today, but the proposition expects that there be transformational investment in a much quicker period of time to address the deficiencies that I've stated than we could ever begin to do within the constraints of our state program. And we would be very thorough in any RFP that we put together, addressing retaining public use for general aviation, including the people who currently lease from it now. And depending upon what a potential investor may wish to bring forward, I don't want to speculate on what else that could imply for the public. But I've mentioned one person and one company who has expressed interest.
Right.
And I'd leave it at that, but their record seems to stand for itself.
Is the road paved all the way? I can't remember.
believe
The
it is.
airport, it is, yes, it is.
I've been up there.
It-
I was there just last summer.
It goes past the road that goes around the airport or across the front of the airport, and then it ends shortly after that.
I think Senator Pertlick's question, in light of, for example, there was the neighbors, remember there was an appeal there, and it had to do with the lighting, and it was before the lighting would be on at night, so they were really concerned about that.
That's why I didn't want UPS.
And they didn't want UPS, and then you went to this lighting system, so it was activated by the pilot, I guess, and only turned on when it was needed. I suppose that's gonna be what ever, it's kind of inherent where the location is. We get it, Middlebury obviously is expressed concern. So, but there is a history where neighbors would maybe be concerned about activity or traffic because it's so minimal at this point. My last recollection is you actually had to pull the fuel out because they sold so little fuel that it was
There is fuel there.
aged. No, but there was a time when what was the tank had to be empty because the fuel was,
Yes.
I don't know. It reached a point where it was too old or too something or rather to actually be sold.
So FAA has a specification that says fuel has a shelf life,
Shelf life,
and,
okay.
and,
that's right.
and it exceeded that shelf life, and the cost to test that fuel to get it back to the, say it was either good or bad, was more than what was left in the tank, so we ended up emptying the tank. It was more cost effective to do that, but we do have fuel there now again.
So this would become a private airport. We have other private airports in Vermont. I didn't know if, like, and not people in Middlebury listening, like one of their complaints was because it's a state airport, it was, the permitting is different, or is that just the permitting? would be the
Permitting
same?
process is the same.
It's the same.
So anyone who would operate this airport, whether it's lighting or anything else, if we kept the airport, we would have to face all those issues, as would anyone who owned that airport.
So they're not.
We would not be able to circumvent any permit process.
Would be just.
I just think it's a great opportunity to move ahead and look at, explore, because we just let them sit there for years, doing nothing. And maybe there's some potential there, but speaking of the person who's interested, I think it's a great asset for that area. But, you know, like I said, I felt for years that we underutilize our airports, and we're trying our best, and they serve a good purpose at Stowe. That's pretty popular now. I guess there's a lot of folks flying there, but on the other hand, if we can possibly make it better, you know, the region or.
Oh, I think the state's held on to these things for the possibility of economic expansion within our state.
Yeah.
And if we don't have the capital to make that happen, but we are going to get the benefit of what a company, of any company that would want an airport would bring to the area. I think it goes with our mission of why we've had them for so long.
This language doesn't lock us into anything definite. I mean, just explorers, right?
Well, the language would
Authorized.
lock the General Assembly into giving us permission to sell it, but it doesn't lock us into any decision on a sale to anyone in particular.
Right.
Well, that's my question, like, if this was to pass, the agency could go ahead and make a sale with any terms and conditions. There wouldn't be any.
Legislative approval.
Yeah,
Correct.
after that, like.
And just for
Look
the,
back.
just for the record, I mean, we buy and sell property a lot. We have the authorization to do that. There's a limit of cap on the cost, but we would never even take that approach. This is a significant regional asset. There is a rich aviation community in the state of Vermont, but beyond imagining how the infrastructure might possibly improve more rapidly if there were private investment, I think Senator Ingalls, you started to hit on this, the potential for economic development in this area that's had a history of solid job force production, the institutional, educational institutions from the college to St. Johnsbury Academy to Linden Institute that are all right there. The possibilities, I-91, right there.
93.
Yeah, 93 just down the road. So, the possibilities at this airport, from our perspective, within the aviation program at the agency, have all of a sudden risen very quickly to the art of the possible and what if. And it's why we're here today, to seek this permission to move forward. Or not move forward if we don't feel there's the right deal. I want to make sure that's emphasized as well.
And do we, the state, own a lot of that land around there, or is it just
77 acres, I think it was.
We own, I believe it's 70.1 acres, and we have an easement
some of
on,
these fields are really
Correct.
state owned?
right, so whatever the math is, we could get for you, but we have 70.1 acres, I believe, and there's an easement for 8 or 10 acres. The easement, I assume, would go with the sale, because it's part of the allocation
Right.
that's needed.
I guess I'm for it, but my only concern would be that we wouldn't have any say after we approve this. And if the localities, if one of the localities doesn't like it, they could come to us and say, here's something that we really need as part of the sale. But after we approve this, they wouldn't have that recourse.
But don't they have to go through all the permitting process?
No, just like if, let's say the town says, well, we really want to make sure that XYZ is in the lease. Once we sign this, we say like, we'll just go talk to Secretary Flynn because we don't have any control over that. You would either do it or not based on your own expertise.
And, you know, I respect the concerns that you expressed with the community, and we wouldn't want to necessarily push anything on a community we didn't think was valuable to it as well. Developing a lease, or I'm sorry, developing a sales document, you know, in a public forum would be awkward, just to be very frank. We are proposing to have a meeting at the airport in the near future, I think next week. We would publicize that. I believe, well, notice has gone out already. Once my testimony began, notice has gone out to the aviation users of the airport and to the Aviation Advisory Council. We don't want to keep anybody in the dark.
What about to the town and to the NVDA?
Yes, that was sent as well.
I was gonna say, any entity would be
Yeah.
taken by surprise.
And the delegation.
We didn't have the two house reps, though. No, Charlie Wilson and Dennis Labonte are the reps from
Yeah.
Linden.
Right.
Outback St. J.
Yeah.
And so was Scott Campbell. So we didn't have, and probably should talk to them, Michelle.
Yeah.
Because they're the ones who represent the town of Linden.
I just want to say I'm very supportive and excited about this opportunity of Beta growing further in the state, or anybody wanting to invest money in Caledonia and grow that part of Vermont, especially to better utilize this asset. I would just really advocate for broadening the language to give you the option for a 99-year lease. I ran into trouble when we just started talking about zoning over parking at an airport and talking about selling an airport. You're going to hit all sorts of issues and concerns. And I think a lease agreement that I guess Senator Engels has already raised is going to create a lot more options for you. Will you maintain the public interest? So just giving you that option and your considerations, I think would be well worth that.
I second the first part. Well, I second everything that Senator Shin just said. I think it's a great opportunity. I want to be supportive. I would be reluctant to pass it today before we've heard from it. I would hate for a representative of the town to say, oh, you heard it before you heard from us, you already voted it. So,
Well, I think that it's a legitimate concern.
or we just want to hear from them, at least give them a chance before we voted on it to give us their opinion.
Sure.
I mean, we're running out of time. I get that, so I want to take the opportunity, but I don't want to rush it. If we,
But I just want you to know that we did try to assemble the entire delegation this morning, and it was short notice, but the majority, but I hear.
we're supportive.
No, I don't want to speak for everybody in the room. I think the tenor in the room was supportive, but I don't want to say to a member that was the
If we
case.
can give them time just to like check in with the select board and just see if there's anything that we might want to be aware of.
I've already got a message out to one of the select board members, but yes.
Yeah, I mean, I want to hear from you, Russ, and what you're saying.
I'm totally supportive of this idea. I think it's a.
So, hearing what I'm hearing, what we would like to do is pass over it this morning and take it up soon again tomorrow. Would that be time to get some input, or I'm just trying to figure out the time schedule, how we're gonna do the time.
I do think due diligence would require our getting some testimony, because something, when you take it down to the community level, as Andy said, some things get identified or concerns.
So we want to take it up back to.
I don't know, it seems like the connection with the community back, whether it's through NVDA, working with the town, or someone from the select board or planning. I'm not sure, Michelle, in terms of who we should hear from, but
Well,
we definitely should.
why don't you work on that?
Yeah.
Today and let us know when it was possible to bring it up again. We don't want to rush it. On the other hand, we'll try to do the best we can about getting it up first of the week. But I guess we'll rely on some of the information you asked for here. Get back to us, or maybe back to Mike or someone, or just remember.
Because we could do it as a floor amendment, if
Before the-
we're gonna have a few days. to
Yeah.
do that.
Yeah, okay, we'll get the questions answered. We want to make sure, I know it's a big thing we took this morning right away, but it's come up rapidly, but we want to make sure it's all done right here at
And it is in a rural area, there's no question, you go, it's out of Linden Center, and you go up Puddin Hill. And so it's rural, and I'm sure that like anything, if you have a budding property, you have legitimate concerns.
There's someone at the airport all the time, there's staff.
Yes, yeah, we have one AOT maintenance worker there,
Every day.
5 days a week, and weather dependent on the weekends.
But in a minimum, what I think we've said we'd like is to at least give the lease option if that should materialize, not restrict you to one.
Right.
And the others, I think it's really important to articulate the public use
Yeah,
assurance.
in the language.
I just have, if it's okay, I just have one clarifying statement. Now, one of the things and words make a difference here. So when you say, is it a private airport? So there's a difference between a private airport and a public use airport owned by a private entity. Okay, so this would be a public use airport owned by a private entity. The other distinction here is we need FAA approval, right? So and the reason we need that is because this airport is part of what's called the NIPIAS, and that's the National Airport System Plan. So that means that there are airports within a certain mile distance away from a different airport. So if the plane gets in trouble, it has the legal ability to land at a public use airport. This would remain in the NIPIAS. And for an airport to be removed from the NIPIAS, whether we do it or the private owner has to do it, they have to go to the FAA. FAA does not like taking airports at a NIPIAS.
But this wouldn't be taking it out.
There's
then, if it's public.
we are not asking for that, and
Do we
nor
have any privately owned public access airports now?
we do not, well, they're.
Lake Cham, over on the
We have, in
lake.
Vermont, there are, what is it? There's
Three,
three,
maybe?
I think there's three other airports.
Basin
that are
Harbor
part-
is
Basin
one.
Harbor, they're part of the NIPIAS, they're privately owned. So there are other airports in the state like this,
That are
or would be like
that public access or private?
public access. So there's a big distinction between a private airport and a privately owned public use airport. And as you guys have these
Yeah,
discussions,
okay.
saying it correctly will
Sure.
help educate us.
Okay, anything else?
So just for clarification, are we following up with the two reps?
Yes,
Yes, okay, and then we will provide
in the town.
their input or make them, tell them to, I just,
Yeah, if we
We
could
got
have
emails
come into the
to all
committee.
three select board members.
Okay.
So if I hear anything, I'll direct them to you, Michelle.
Thank
And
you.
if one of them could come in.
Or testify.
Or just testify on the screen, yeah.
Right.
We can just have phone in.
and just so that I'm clear on the language about the lease, it could be an either or, but not, okay. I think that enhances,
The flexibility.
enhances the
to
flexibility,
explore both.
right?
And add language that the public access would
Right.
be retained.
Privately owned.
Maybe it's what I
Public
was not
use.
saying, but we just put it in language.
And I can assure you that that would be very thoroughly worded, but I appreciate the fact that you like it in the statute.
And probably the FAA would require it.
But we would want to ensure that in any transaction, just because we're here as honest brokers, because we see the potential not only for this asset to improve much more quickly than we could ever do it, but we also see the benefits, the potential upsides far beyond just the actual infrastructure of the airport.
Yeah.
So we would want to do this the right way and just ask that the General Assembly would put that trust in us.
If I may ask Dan a question, for the privately owned airports that are currently part of that system that have public use airports, if the private entity goes belly up bankrupt, just says, I can't do this anymore, what happens?
Well, that's between them and the FAA, but there is some assurance to be in the NIPIAS, some language that they have between the airports to allow them to be part of the system. But I don't know that there's, has anyone ever gone under? I don't know the answer, not that I know of in Vermont, so I don't know, I honestly don't know. I've never had to deal with that situation, but
So that contemplates
They would
scenario is all
cease
the more reason why I think a 99-year
access,
lease might be more attractive.
They would
So
have
that's for you all to figure out.
We might have to buy it back, so we get a bargain.
But then it's really messy if you don't own it.
Right.
We'll wait to hear from you, what's going on, keep us informed.
Just for the record, we built this airport in 1937. I think the state started it for $78,350.61.
You know, the airport used to be in St. Johnsbury behind the old Blue Moon. And I remember that in the 50s and 60s. I don't remember one on Pudding Hill until, I thought that was the replacement for the old one in St. Jay.
So some of the select board and Linda are watching the meeting right now.
Oh.
So just to let you know, Michelle, I'll give you contact.
Thank you.
And why did the state go there? Just to have a regional airport, because there wasn't another airport. Jay wanted it.
No,
She was gonna fly to Spain or Portugal or something.
no, actually, my brother-in-law did have a plane, and he and Gil and Nathaniel, he flew to Lebanon, and my son, who was just a little kid, thought he was going to Beirut. All worried because there was so much conflict there. He thought he was going into a war zone.
He had dreams of the kids were traveling.
Yeah, he did. He thought he was going to Beirut. As opposed to,
Charter flight.
you know, like somebody said they were going to LA, it was Lewiston, Auburn. So,
This is more an institutions question since it's an asset owned by the state. So-
yeah, we asked that question about whether,
In the transportation statutes, it carves out a transportation owned property. So it stays within the agency as opposed to the BGS pass or path or something else.
Yes, but have you done or will do the same to the house transportation as well?
Tuesday.
For the record, I have no interest in presenting a Beta-related airport amendment on the floor of the T-bill. So if somebody else would do that, I'd appreciate it.
You're way ahead of us now.
I think the questions we'll get is
You
from
wanna report everything, so why not? You know what I mean?
those senators that represent districts that have airports where they have people that are,
I don't have an airport.
no, I'm just happen to be looking at you. I'm
Ross
not-
got the airport.
There's other,
We have three airports.
there's other airports that have people that live near the airports that aren't that happy about the activity there.
No, that's,
And people will see this as like, oh, does that affect that? I don't think it does, but that'll just raise. Those are the kind of questions.
I'm not sure how, you know, for example, we're undertaking millions of dollars worth of work today as we speak at Highgate. But that in and of itself is not affecting any of the other airports.
No, I think they'll just like, is this,
the adjacent landowners.
right, is there a way for them to use this to get something they want or, you know, air their complaints?
That's why I asked if the road was paved.
It looks like if there's a lot of traffic, that intersection there doesn't look like really built for a lot of traffic turning left up to the airport, but
Yeah, that's,
You either turn left to go up Pudding Hill, or you go through the bridge, and hopefully you don't have a big truck, covered bridge.
but hopefully if
or you go left and.
You get on.
the people we think are gonna purchase it, they would just fly over. They wouldn't be driving it so much.
The airport of that entrance to go up Pudding Hill is not very far from a 93.
Yeah, the
exit on
exit,
122.
The 91 exit.
That's right,
I don't
No,
know,
I-
3 miles maybe.
right by the V-Trans garage, right.
I'm supportive, but we just need to do the due diligence to make sure it goes smooth.
Which I gather is gonna happen if the select board is.
Looks like it's underway. Everyone's on their cell phones.
Lots of